I spend a lot of time on the channel making things out of metal to make other things out of metal. Figured today I'd mix it up and make something out of metal to make things out of wood. Not too long ago I rearranged the shop and moved the miter saw onto this workbench. Before I did that I had this board mounted next to it with marks on it for various things I have to cut repetitively on a frequent basis, sort of production work. Let me cut things pretty quickly and repeatably. Now with this new setup I need to come up with a new solution to that. I've got these holes here. I think I can come up with some rails that come out of those. It's not quite half an inch. 12 millimeters. Now, I know you all want to see me make this out of just random bits of rusty junk, but I've got these pieces of 5/8 stainless steel. The end result will be a lot nicer using these, and it'll be a little bit less work. A while back, I bought the kind of scrap and random metal pile at a blacksmith shop auction. I paid $24 for the entire pile, and after I picked through it, I took $44 worth of steel to the scrapyard, so that gives you an idea of the scale of it, but that's where these came from. I would like to polish this up a bit, so I'm just going to pop a quick center hole in here before I pull it out. Normally you'd want to try to drill the center hole with it already pulled out. Since I'm just polishing this, I feel like it's going to go easier if I do it this way. Those look pretty good. Next thing I want to do is make a support down at this end. And so that takes some really interesting measurement because I want to have a fence on it, I want to have this surface on it, and these. So it's a lot of interesting measurements trying to work out this geometry. I'm going to tap this for a set screw, but I don't want to tap that whole distance, so I'm going to clearance drill it. Maybe not. I roughed out most of the top so that I could do it in a more rigid setup. Now I just need to go back and square up this corner. And just so that nobody needs to remind me that end mills don't leave a perfectly square corner, I'm going to relieve this with a file, even though it's only ever going to see the corner of a piece of wood. wasn't happy with the surface finish the fly cutter was leaving, so I moved over to the shaper. When I'm trying to get a project like this knocked out, sometimes I'll decide to, go chase surface finish for way too long. That came out pretty well. That side didn't, and I have no idea why, but I just want to move on with this. I did a little quick layout to figure out where I want to put the holes that go vertically through this thing. I reamed these holes undersized so I can press the pins into the bottom piece. And then open up the top piece with an oversized reamer for a sliding fit. I made up this plate to go on the back side. In the process, I did track down my surface finish issue. It was just a dull tool. Reason for doing this in two pieces is if I just tried to mill this, on one of these corners I would end up with a radius from the end mill. Easiest solution I could come up with was to just do it in two pieces, screw it together. But one issue has arisen. I drilled and tapped these holes from the front side, and when this hole intersected with that hole, it deflected. And this doesn't thread in there now. I probably don't really need that, but perfectionism's getting the better of me. Let's try to fix that. Plunging this with a 3/8 end mill will leave the hole a little over the proper tap drill size, but work with what you got. It's a 7/16 tap. I drilled a little bit more than halfway through, so now I'm just going to go in with the bottoming tap, get it the rest of the way down. Clean this out real well. I'd love to put this in this way so that hooks against the vise, but it doesn't quite fit. Well, that was a good excuse to clean up that surface finish at least. What are left of the threads on the front side here should be fairly straight, so I'm tapping through from this side so that the threads line up the whole way through. There is a slight risk in doing this of unscrewing the repair piece, but it's stress testing. You can just barely make out that repair. Of course, with it all together, it'll be our little secret. Made a little cap for the other end of this, and I wanted to make it a nice press fit on there, so of course I grabbed the 5/16 drill bit and drilled it out the wrong size. So Loctite it is. I think that's a pretty classy little Tommy bar, maybe more of like a Thomas bar. I went with the Tommy bar so that when I get down to the ends, I can still tighten it. It's a little awkward. You can get it almost the entire way to the end, not quite. One thing I've been thinking about is if this was a continuous surface, you would want some sort of little groove or something here so that when you push a board down, it doesn't push the sawdust down into there. I think with this design, I don't need it. If I do, I'll go back and add it later. I want to put a flat on these rods for doing the engravings, which is just a game of toe clamp leapfrog. Until I run out of table travel. Using that level to reposition worked really well, about as well as anywhere else I moved the clamps. I want to use a diamond drag engraver to do the markings on this. Of course, the problem is I don't have one, and so far my experiments in making industrial diamonds in the home shop haven't really worked out yet. Nope. So I bought a tip. I'll make the rest of it. It's just a little tiny diamond on there. 1/8 of an inch shank on it. This little shoulder is 142.5. Spring is 158. This set screw is, normally working in inches, millimeters doesn't really matter, but when you get into number screws, this is where it gets irritating. So that's a number 10 screw. Yep, 1032. So tap drill for 1032 is 159. So that spring fits in the tap drill size. This little guy goes there. Drawings for this project are available on my Patreon. So this is kind of interesting. I'm working my lathe's tendency to cut a taper against the deflection on this end. So out on the end here, about 1/2 thousandth over. And against the chuck, about 1,000th over. And kind of in the middle here, that's maybe 2/10. So yeah, the middle is kind of like 2/10, and it's actually wider on the ends. The lathe is trying to cut it smaller, but because this is unsupported, it's deflecting away and cutting it a little bigger. This is really just for the people that don't like to see me do things quick and dirty. That ought to fit in a collet. I put a mark on here at 16 inches on the saw. That's actually my 0 point. Everything's based off of that. Let's see if this thing works. Yeah, it's actually not supposed to run the spindle. I did multiple passes on these basically until the line stopped getting any more distinct. End result on that is okay. If the light catches it the right way, it's pretty legible. If the light's the wrong way, it's not. The other one, though, came out really poorly the first time, so I went back, sanded out the tool marks, and ran it again. And now it's much better. So I guess I'm going to do that to this one. Well, I think that's, yeah, well, duh, of course it looks better. One of the advantages of doing these videos is if I end up with something that's minimally acceptable, I have a lot more incentive to go back and redo it. So, thanks for watching and keeping me honest. I also did some cold blue on all the parts that aren't stainless. I think it gives it a nice contrast. I know this piece is the right length, so I'm going to use that to kind of set the depth. So there's one set screw here, but there's not one on this side. So this Holds this piece in place. This is going to hold both of these together, and then I'll set the depth on this side. That is a 1/16 short. I just need to do some more tweaking on adjusting this. Got it down to 19 inches, looks like it's spot on. Well, I'm happy with how that came out. I think it's going to meet my needs really well. It fits exactly the space I need. It might be slightly overcomplicated. Let me know what you think. And if you like seeing that, stick around, I'll do more.